the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
All right, a quick update on Bitcoin ETFs. The asset managers behind those funds, in less than 1 year since their launch, have become the largest holders of Bitcoin. Asset managers now hold about 1,104,000 Bitcoin, just surpassing holdings of anonymous founder Satoshi Nakamoto, who is said to control 1,100,000 Bitcoin. Asset managers hold about 5% of all Bitcoin, and Bitcoin makes up 1% of assets under management across all ETFs. These funds began trading in the U.S. back in January. The launch was marked as a milestone in getting institutional interest and even adoption into the cryptocurrency.
The Drew Mariani Show on Relevant Radio.
Thanks to CNBC for reporting that on Bitcoin. I want to talk about this today. It's something I've been looking at, and I've got guests who join me frequently. Some are very positive on Bitcoin, and some say it's the next bubble waiting to burst. So I thought today I'd invite two friends of the show. These are great guys who've been with me many times in the past. I tap into their genius when it comes to finance. Bill Ulivieri is a registered investment advisor who specializes in cryptocurrency. And years ago, he was way ahead of the curve on this. There's other guys like Peter Grandich, Chris Temple, others who've said, we have to really look at whether or not this is a good investment or not. Bill's joining me now. So is Chris Temple. He's the editor and the publisher of the National Investor. Gentlemen, welcome. It's good to have both of you with me today.
Hey, Drew, Bill.
Well, let me start with you, Bill, because I know I have you both on the same line here. I think a lot of people are still in the dark about crypto and how it works. I know blockchain is a big part of this. You've been a visionary. You've been way ahead of the curve on this. Give us a primer on it, if you could, and what you make of where we are today.
Well, Bitcoin, by its original design, was meant to be digital cash. Just like dollar bills, $100 bills, it was a way of exchanging value person to person without the need of a third-party intermediary like a bank or a credit union. And so Bitcoin did a few things. It solved a very complex computer science problem. And so for the first time in history, what Bitcoin as a technology has provided is something called digital scarcity. So what makes gold, its value proposition, one of the things is that it's scarce, it's scarcity. But you couldn't say that about JPEG files or bitmap files or cat videos on the internet. There's an unlimited number of low value items that go across the internet every single day. But Bitcoin created scarcity and network security. And that's good for high value options, high value things like real estate, part of the global GDP, art, other type of valuables that are non-fungible or are unique. Real estate, buildings, commercial real estate, that's all going to be put on a blockchain. And it's being done right now as we speak. So Bitcoin solved a lot of problems, especially in a digital age where we can now literally send money across the world for virtually no cost, bringing everybody into the globe in simultaneously for no cost. And I think that that's a huge deal.
So, Bill, just following up on that, this is it fair to call Bitcoin, is it fair to compare it to gold as a store of value? Is it, people are calling it digital gold. What do you make of that?
I think it's appropriate because it's many things. And I think digital gold is a perfectly fine analogy right now. Although it's by its design was meant to be digital cash, it is a store of value. And frankly, I personally believe it's a better store of value than gold.
Yeah. And let me throw to you now, Chris, if I could, when it comes to understanding, there's a lot we can talk about. I mean, investment is one part of that. Critics compare Bitcoin to this tulip mania of the 1630s and also the dot-com bubble. What's your take on Bitcoin? Is there a risk of a similar collapse? You're seeing a lot of people begin to embrace it. How are you reading the winds?
Well, there's a risk. I mean, that is mitigated in part by what Bill pointed out, which is a legitimate aspect of Bitcoin, and that is the engineered scarcity behind it. Unlike fiat currency, the people who are mining these Bitcoins are limited as to how they can do that. But, let me push back on a couple of things. First of all, the idea that some have that this is digital gold. The last thing I want to do is support anything that Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, says. But he was asked about this the other day and said that, Bitcoin and gold are competitors more than either of those are competitors with the U.S. dollar. And that's kind of silly. What I would submit is that the overwhelming majority of people who are in Bitcoin are doing it as part of the greater fool theory. There's no social statement. There's no philosophy behind this. It's the greater fool theory, and everybody hopes that if the music does stop, they're one of the first to grab a chair. You know, people that are accumulating gold, at least up until now, are doing it much more so as a store of value. Now, is it harder to do with gold than with Bitcoin? Yeah, generally speaking. You know, you mentioned China, and that's where a lot of the demand in the recent past has come, because everybody that with any sense is trying to get their money out of China if they can. And a lot of that went into Bitcoin, which of course is why the, export restrictions on that.
Yeah. We're seeing, and Bill, feel free to jump in anytime you guys want to go back and forth. Feel free to go ahead and do that. You mentioned Jerome Powell, the Fed Reserve Chair, mentioning, Bitcoin and validating it as a legitimate store of value. Donald Trump was not pro-Bitcoin, Bill, for a while, and yet he seems to have had a transformation there. His pick for the SEC chair, Paul Atkins, is seen as very pro-crypto. He's a big advocate of it, and I just wonder, what this means. I know the crypto lobby spent a lot of money in the 2024 election, and they got something like 85% of the people they backed elected. Is it paying off for them? Where's the administration and this new mindset on Capitol Hill? What does that portend for crypto?
Well, I think cryptocurrency, by its very nature, Drew, is blockchain technology, just like artificial intelligence, just like other types of technology that the United States, frankly, was always number one at gaining and exploiting and using to our benefit. And previous administrations had diminished and targeted people that were opening cryptocurrency and blockchain businesses. And just to respond to Chris, in terms of the greater fool theory, we've got Jerome Powell, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, Chicago Board Options Exchange, the New York Stock Exchange, Michael Saylor, Donald Trump, Senator Cynthia Lummis, Elon Musk, Tim Draper, Dr. Jordan Peterson, Fidelity, Invesco, Guggenheim. There's only like 40 more companies and 40 more people minimum that believe that Bitcoin is what its value proposition is, even though it might not be all fully realized yet. And I think that the current administration finally is realizing that artificial intelligence and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and blockchain fit hand in hand. If it wasn't for Bitcoin, we probably wouldn't even have artificial intelligence at this particular level. And so, listen, ever since I have very strong beliefs about this, Drew, obviously, but money has to be accepted in order for it to be considered a medium of exchange. Right. And I know that there are probably more companies and more locations globally accept Bitcoin than do gold. I know I can't go to Costco or Jimmy John's or my gas station with a gold coin and get anything with it. Right. As a matter of fact, I can hardly use a $100 bill without them checking it with some kind of marker for authenticity. But Bitcoin does that. Bitcoin has its authenticity and its value, and it has a network that it moves through, and that's all part of the security and the value proposition. If you want to move gold out of China, you can't do it. Just like you can't move a few coins through TSA at the airport. Right. I'm not saying that gold is a bad thing. Right? I believe in gold, but it's a relic of the past. It hasn't been accepted as money since 1971 when we came off the gold standard, and that's something we got to be open to.
Do these currencies, and I want to get to the phones just very quickly, like the Litecoins and some of the other ones that are out there right now, do they differ from Bitcoin, or are they the same, or do they function for different purposes? And Bill, maybe you can answer that.
Yeah, they all have a different use case, Drew. Bitcoin was designed to be digital cash, just like when you go to a farmer's market and you hand over a $20 bill for vegetables. You don't need to go through a bank or a credit union. Ethereum was designed to be a global unified operating system. So here we have Android, Apple iOS, Microsoft DOS, we have Linux, and all these different kind of computer languages. Ethereum was meant to be a singular operating system. XRP is the bank cryptocurrency, where rather than using the SWIFT banking system, where you're transmitting billions of dollars overseas, you use the XRP, and you can send a penny, or you can send 200 billion in a matter of a few seconds for virtually no cost. And so every other cryptocurrency after that, and there's thousands of them, all have their own unique value proposition.
All right, let's go to the phones, take a few calls. Frank is in Capitol Heights, Maryland. First one in. Frank, good afternoon.
Hey, Hey, Drew, how are you? God bless you, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I was listening to the conversation about the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I think it is what he said. It's artificial. It's not real. It's just like, Drew, say, for example, if someone worked at McDonald's and they worked 40 hours and their check was $305 after taxes, then, they have their cash money. They could go to the bank and deposit it, or they could cash it in and have their cash money. That's better. I think it's artificial, and I don't think it's real, Drew. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So maybe, gentlemen, you could talk about changing the mindset of a lot of people. A lot of people have that set. Gold is something tangible. This is ones and zeros in some respects.
I think you can convince the American people down the road that any of these things are worthwhile when Joe Sixpack and Sally Soccer Mom can use these currencies outside of the present system, which to me is really one of the canards of the whole Bitcoin argument. Bitcoin is not 100,000 Bitcoins or 100,000 marbles or kumquats. It's $100,000. It is still part and parcel of a Federal Reserve system where all of the currency we use as a society is first loaned at interest to the markets by a private bank. It's simply a vehicle at this point in time whose major utility is to make a lot of people smart enough to get into it early on rich. And, more power to them. I wish I would have bought a 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner years ago for a fraction of what I just saw it sell for at a Barrett-Jackson auction.
Yeah,
so a lot of things are scarce that go up in price that are real and have utility. Yeah. And I we don't regrettably have nearly enough time today to do this, but to me, this is not the legitimate alternative currency of the masses. The closest thing suggested in this area in recent years was about 5 or so years ago when Facebook came out with a proposal to have its own, alternative currency as such that you could trade person to person on Facebook Messenger. Unlike what was been the case with Bitcoin and others, Washington and the banking committees immediately went hysterical because that was something that Joe Sixpack and Sally Soccer Mom could use as an alternative currency. Bitcoin is for the ones that love technology, that got in early. And again, you can make money with a lot of different things, but this has not changed the system, in my view, certainly not from a Catholic and social justice perspective as to what its benefits are.
So, Bill, let me let you follow up on that just from a Catholic perspective, something you've often championed. You think this is kind of fits in with that Catholic profile?
Yes. I mean, first of all, I virtually disagree with everything Chris said and the caller, actually, because the U.S. dollar has lost, 95% of its value in the last 20 or 25 years. The number of dollars that are outstanding in the system doubled in the last 4 to 6 years, which means that you now have to work twice as hard in order to make your ends meet. Bitcoin is the opposite of that. Bitcoin is what's provided the true inflation hedge. If you go back to the gold panic of 1869, gold has returned 2.82% annually for the last 155 years. If you think the inflation rate is 3% annually or 4% annually, you are a net loser for holding gold for the last 155 years. But I digress, okay? Let me go back to the church's teachings. Caritas in Veritate. This was the encyclical written by Pope Benedict XVI that was released during the Great Recession in 2009. And in it, he said, human costs always include economic costs, and economic dysfunction always involve human costs. That's number 32. Now, if it's true that economic dysfunctions always involve human costs, then the entire globe is economically dysfunctional and humanly dysfunctional, insofar as that the banking system, the Federal Reserve, the Bank for International Settlements, the World Bank, every currency inflates and diminishes, dilutes, degrades through inflation and through the monetary printing press, the value of human labor. And for the first time in history, we have Bitcoin with a limited supply, a fixed supply that's only going to theoretically can go up in value. Anybody can use it. Sub-Saharan Africa, South America, Ukraine, Russia, Italy, Spain, it doesn't matter. I can send money anywhere in the world without the need of JP Morgan or a wire transfer or PayPal or Facebook Libra or whatever that. I don't need any of that. That's the value proposition of Bitcoin. It's truly freedom.
Well, gentlemen, I am grateful for both of you being here, for your perspectives. It's an engaging conversation. Bill Ulivieri is a registered investment advisor, specializes in cryptocurrency. You can check him out at CentralCapital.com. Chris Temple, the editor, publisher of the National Investor. You can find him at nationalinvestor.com. Hey, like what you just heard? Then share it with your family and friends. And thanks for listening.